Hello, and welcome to Stuff and Things with Chris. I'm your host, Chris. So, I put out some videos about what are some cool stuff to binge watch, various kinds of genres on Netflix. But what if you ain't got the Netflix? Well, if you're like me, maybe you've got Netflix and something else. I have Amazon Prime, so I thought I'd put together a few videos about what's good to watch on Amazon Prime. So, we'll start off with just some basic stuff. Amazon Prime's a lot different than Netflix. They do have their own shows and their own movies, but a lot of the stuff they have on Amazon Prime is things they have picked up from other networks. Got canceled over here, so Netflix went out and picked it up. Amazon Prime went out and picked it up, and so now it's part of their running cadre of stuff. They have a whole gamut. A lot of the things on Amazon Prime are not the caliber of Netflix. They don't have nearly the budget. They don't have nearly the money to throw around that Netflix does. But still, they do have some pretty good shows on there. What Amazon Prime does do, they have a whole lot of shows that aren't recent but are still good. And some of these are, most of these center around British stuff, a lot of BBC productions. And those cover all kinds of gamuts, all kinds of genres. So I'll mention some of those today. But I think today what we'll start off with are science fiction shows. So if we're going to talk about science fiction shows, the best ones out there on Amazon Prime are the ones Amazon Prime has done themselves. Now some of these fall into more of a fantasy genre. Some of them are totally just way out there. So we'll start off with The Expanse. So The Expanse was originally on SciFi. They did 3 seasons on SciFi, and then SciFi said thank you, but no thanks, and canceled it. Now there was a big uproar that had a very devoted fan base. Amazon Prime saw an opportunity, purchased the rights, and then purchased a 4th season from the show's directors and creators, and that has come out now on Amazon Prime, and they have greenlit a 5th season, so we'll see how that goes. But who knows when they'll actually get to do that. Obviously, due to the coronavirus, all of Hollywood is shut down, so new shows aren't getting made at all anywhere. But the first 4 seasons of this show are good. This is a big, sprawling universe. It is a series of books that the show is based on. It's centered in a universe where humans have colonized parts of the solar system, and there are basically 3 groups of people. There are the people on Earth, there are the people on Mars, and then there are the Belters. And the Belters live in the asteroid belt and mine and scratch out a living from the asteroids around them, and kind of trade happens between all 3 of these groups of people and these civilizations. Now Mars, this is not a group of like 20 people. Mars has like millions of people on it now. This is of hundreds of years in the future. It's a very successful colony. What you basically end up with is ancient Greece. You have Athens represented by Earth. That's where the culture, that's where the art, that's where the philosophy, the thinkers, all those people are on Earth. Mars is like Sparta. It's militaristic. It's very totalitarian. They play no games. Okay, always ready for war. Okay, they spend all their time preparing for war. So as you can guess, these 3 groups of people are kind of competing for resources and power, and while this is going on, there's kind of an undercurrent of perhaps there's some alien life somewhere, there's some weird discoveries going on. The show follows a crew of a ship as they navigate all of the political intricacies that go on with all these 3 people, these 3 groups of people. They're sent on missions. There's also some other things going on. They get kind of really wild later on. There's a private detective on Earth who is trying to investigate what happened to some rich guy's daughter, and so he kind of gets brought into this, and you have some diverging character arcs, and they kind of all join later on in the 1st season and 2nd season. And you know, it's big. This is a big, sprawling epic. Lots of spaceships, lots of politics, lots of shooting of stuff. It's pretty cool. I enjoyed it. It's not going to be up to the technical levels of, say, Star Trek Next Generation, as far as, maybe the acting and maybe some of the special effects might get a little cheesy, but you have to remember this was a sci-fi show, so Sci-Fi Channel is not going to be shelling out hundreds of millions of dollars for computer graphics and top-level A-list actors and all that. But everybody does a pretty good job, and it's pretty cool. I would check that out. It's called The Expanse. So it has 4 seasons right now, and there will be a 5th one coming out soon. Now, next on my list is Man in the High Castle. Now, this is an Amazon original. So Amazon produced this, did all their thing with it. And this stars Rufus Sewell, probably the primary actor you've heard of. This is based on a book by Philip K. Dick, and this is a genre of science fiction called revised historical fiction. So in this particular setting, we are in America. It is after World War II, and the Axis powers have won. So you have an alternate universe where Germany has taken over half of the U.S. and Japan has taken over the West Coast. And so the Rocky Mountains in between are kind of a neutral area. And what we follow various people on both coasts, both working for the respective Nazi government and the Japanese Empire, as well as American resistance fighters on both coasts and a group of people who are in this neutral area in the middle. So the series revolves around how all these people interact, how the freedom fighters are trying to get, as much resistance built up as possible to basically get the Nazis to leave. It's a very good show. The acting is very good. The writing's very well done. There's a big kind of a teaser in the first season that involves a film, a old black and white news film, and it shows what our history is, which is where the Nazis lost and Hitler died, and World War II happened, but the Allies won. And so that causes a lot of confusion, and the Nazis have heard about this, and they want the tape, and the Japanese guys have heard about it, and they want the tape, and and the resistance has it, and they're trying to get it to a certain person, the man in the high castle who's kind of handing out these films, and who is he, and why is he doing it, and how did he get them? I mean, they're obviously authentic. They do all these tests. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in this show. Some of the character arcs, especially Rufus Sewell's character, get really deep. He gets really into his family and the problems he suddenly finds himself with while trying to maintain his high ranking in the Nazi party. There's some great stuff about a character in the Japanese Empire and how he's beginning to really doubt what his government is doing and how they're treating the U.S. civilians. So it's a good show. I would highly recommend it. They have 4 seasons of that. It just wrapped up, and it's done. Okay, it's done after 4 seasons. So I would recommend this show. It's good. It's got a lot of critical acclaim to it. I think it's a really good show. I've seen 3 seasons. I haven't seen the 4th season yet, but that's on my list of stuff to do. So check that out, Man in the High Castle. Now, while we're in the realm of Amazon originals, we can go on to Carnival Row. Now, this one's got Legolas, all right? It's got Legolas in it from Lord of the Rings, okay? And just like Lord of the Rings, little fairy creatures exist. All the creatures from all the little, enchanted tales you heard about as a kid, they're all alive and well, apparently in Victorian England, except it's not really Victorian England. It is, but it isn't. They call it something else. Sure, whatever. But it's clearly Victorian England. It's all English actors. They're all wearing English clothes from the Victorian era. The houses, all of it looks like Victorian England, but it's in a made-up place. And this centers on 2 competing groups. And I forget the names exactly, but there's, this group of people and this group of people, humans, and they are at war, warring over each other, fighting for stuff. In between this are all the magical creatures. They kind of get caught in the crossfire. both sides, both of the human sides, don't really understand, get, or like the magical creatures. And Carnival Row is a reference to where they live. So they live in kind of a Skid Row kind of a setup in one of the kingdoms, and they're not treated real well. I mean, everybody gets along, sort of, but not really. Tensions are pretty high. Because obviously there's the magical creatures that can do all kinds of stuff, and a lot of the humans don't trust them. So Legolas plays a detective in his kingdom's police department, and he gets charged with trying to figure out how this magical creature was murdered on his beat, and his investigation uncovers all kinds of stuff. There's also a lot of stuff about his past when he was in the war. There's a ceasefire in the war, but it's very tenuous, and so, you know, a lot of these actions, what's going to happen, we're going to have a huge, another giant intercontinental war. And I thought this was a really good show. If you're not into fantasy, it might be a little difficult to get into it because, you know, you've got satyrs and you've got centaurs and you've got fairies and you've got, you know, all that stuff. So if you're not into that, well, not the show for you. But it does have some pretty cool plot threads in it, I thought. Some pretty interesting dilemmas that our main hero gets into, his past, and especially is pretty brutal. And really you get a good tone of how it is to exist in this world, the various class struggles that are going on. I thought it's a good show. It's only one season at this point. They've greenlit a second season, which of course was in the middle of production and now is shut down. But Carnival Row, I would recommend that one. Check that out. That's pretty good too. Kind of along the same fantasy lines, I guess you could call it fantasy, is Good Omens. Now, Good Omens it's still on Amazon. This is an Amazon original as well. It stars David Tennant as a devil, and let me see if I get his name right, Michael Sheen as an angel. Now, Good Omens is a 6-part miniseries. Basically, it is about a devil and an angel who somehow are friends. Okay, they're friends. They've been battling each other for various things all through history of humankind and the universe and all this. And so I guess they kind of have a friendship between the two of them. They discover that there is, I guess you could say, a plot to set about the apocalypse and bring down the world of humanity and start over again, basically. And they don't want that to happen because they like people. Now, they get into some really funny situations. The dialogue between these two guys is great. These two actors are fantastic. I mean, they're really good. They play off of each other very well. It's a pretty funny show. It has some pretty serious moments in it, obviously. But it's kind of a, I guess you would say, dramedy. Okay? Obviously, the apocalypse and the end of the world is not exactly a comedic subject, but these two guys kind of trying to thwart the plans of both the devil and God at the same time, and there's archangels involved and all kinds of other things. It's actually pretty funny. I thought it was a great little watch. It's only 6 episodes, doesn't take very long. Got some great actors in it. I would definitely recommend that one too. It's called Good Omens. It's also an Amazon original. Check that one out. Now, in the realm of things you should never let your kids watch, we're going to cover The Boys. Now, The Boys is a comic book, but it is not a comic book you have heard of because it is not a Marvel or a DC comic. It is an independent publisher's comic. It is brutal. This is not for kids. I cannot stress that enough. Think Watchmen on steroids, okay? Watchmen was all about what would happen if you really had superheroes in the real world, and could people handle that? And oh my goodness, what about that? And well, what if they were bad? No. The Boys takes all of that to another level, okay? This show is really good. This is an anti-comic book show, okay? It revolves around a group of heroes who don't act very heroic. In fact, some of them just act straight up crazy. Some of them are complete jackasses. Some of them are just terrible human beings. And into this walks this new hero who has a ability to kind of formulate light power. And she's kind of bright-eyed and innocent as heroes go, and she quickly learns that these people are not nice people. They do terrible things, but they are supported by the government. There's a whole an army of advertisers who have these guys pitch all their products. They're very intricate into the machinery of the American government. But the boys are a group of vigilantes, normal, everyday people who, for some reason or another, have had their lives destroyed by a hero. So whether it's a hero accidentally blew up their dog, or vaporized their girlfriend, or blew up their house, or whatever it happens to be, they all have a backstory. They have decided that the superheroes need to go. And the government's not going to get rid of them, because the government's making too much money off of them and they solve a lot of their problems. So these guys take it upon themselves to basically hunt down and corner superheroes and kill them. They don't put them in prison. They don't put them on trial and say, gee, you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. They kill them. Okay. Now, as you can possibly imagine, if this was set in, say, DC Universe, and there's 8 or 9 dudes running around trying to catch Batman and kill him, or, Superman or Wonder Woman, it ain't going to be real easy, okay? There's a lot of issues at stake here. So you get into a real sense of who's right, who's wrong, what exactly are these people all doing, vigilante justice, is it warranted, and how can you even enforce that? There's a character in the superhero part, and he's basically an anti-Superman. He has all of Superman's powers, only he's completely unstable and neurotic, as well as being narcissistic and generally just a mean dude. So, trying to get that guy out of his powerful situation is going to be a real challenge, because he's just like Superman, laser eyes, breath, flight, super speed, all that. There's also Wonder Woman. There's also an Aquaman. These are, of course, the dark side of these characters. It's a very well done show. It's got some really hilarious moments. It's also got a lot of very gory moments. It's got a lot of terrible language in it. There's a whole lot of adult situations and sexual situations in this, and bad sexual situation stuff. Okay. Definitely do not watch this with the kids. Okay. Don't. Wait till they go to bed. Preferably they're out of the house completely so they don't stumble in and watch it. Okay. If you can stomach this kind of a show, it's really, really good. Again, if you liked Watchmen, you'll like The Boys. If you've read the Watchmen comic books, you like this also. It just takes that same realism and kind of kicks it up to a Quentin Tarantino level, if you will. So The Boys, they did 1 season. There will be a second whenever that comes out. So next on my list, we've got some oldies but some goodies. Now, you can find some weird stuff on Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime makes it a little tricky to figure out what is actually included in your Amazon Prime subscription and what isn't. So there's things like Space 1999, which was on Amazon Prime, and I binge watched that because I had the Space 1999 lunchbox, all right, and I had the toys and I had the whole spiel, so that was cool to see that out there. It's still on Amazon Prime, but now it's kind of part of another channel. So there's something about you have to sign up to a 30-day free trial, and then you can watch it, and then you have to pay $2 or something like that afterwards. I don't know. There's a lot of shows like that on Amazon Prime, so I will warn you, if it doesn't say Amazon Originals on it, you have to check real carefully that you're not signing up for something. But there is a show that is retro, throwback. It is weird. It is science fiction-y. The Prisoner. This show is from the 60s, late 60s. It is a wacky show, okay? It is basically a show about a secret agent who decides one day, I'm retiring. So he retires. Then he is kidnapped one day and taken to an island. It seems like just an island with a village on it. I mean, there's buildings, there's people, they have jobs, they're all doing stuff. It turns out it's a prison. And the prison's purpose is to get him to tell the bad guy why he retired. That's it. Why he retired. Why did you suddenly quit being a secret agent? So who is running this island? That's one of the big questions. Is this guy an evil person or is it the government? The secret agent is known as Number 6. That is it. It's not Bob or Fred, just Number 6. There is all kinds of wackiness here. Okay, this show is fantastic to watch for kind of a late 60s psychedelic trip into madness. Okay, but with James Bond in it. I mean, you know, straight-laced James Bond and all this weird stuff going on around him. It's a fun show. I would check that out. It was only one season. It's about 16 episodes. It's a lot of fun. Definitely a retro watch if you're into that kind of stuff. Check that one out. That is The Prisoner. So that ends science fiction part. I'm going to do another video about the crime shows on Amazon Prime. Some really good originals and then some other ones that they have had that you might not have heard of that come from England primarily. So look for that the next couple of days. Until then, I will see you later.